All right, welcome to Conversations with People Impacting the World. My name is Jen Edwards, and I'm super excited to have my guest, Jen. Is it Piceno? Is that how I say
Piceno.
it?
Yes.
Piceno. I said it right. I'm so excited. I'm so grateful to have her today. She and I connected through another mutual friend of ours, Victoria Welsh, who is amazing, and I love her. And I think we both have the same sentiments of love and adoration for Victoria. And so she connected us, and we are here to have an amazing conversation today. So that I'm just changing it to full screen here. Anyway, we are here to have an amazing conversation about compassion and healing and seeing it for what it is, and making decisions from our body. Like, this is what we want to vibe into today. So I'm going to let Jen just kind of give us some credentials and what she's done in our healing journey and sort of introduce herself. And then we are going to take the conversation from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. So I am a business and success coach that specializes in wealth consciousness. And to me, wealth consciousness is tapping into that frequency of abundance in all areas of life. And I love that this is the topic for today because you can't get there without coming inward. And that's really where we have to go from for the healing journey, but also for tapping into the desires and bringing them into form that everybody says they want. Everybody's going after something, but unless you do the inner work, what we go after isn't always truly what is going to light us up. Right? We're going external. And I see this so much when people come to me, they're going after things outside of their body, and it's not coming from a soul self or a soul aligned place. So it takes them in this winding course all over. So it's a lot of the work that I do as a coach and also as an author. The books that I am putting out into the world are to help bring people back home to themselves.
Yeah. You know what? This is where the conversation is going to go, is coming home to self, because so many people have self-abandoned, and it starts in childhood. Self-abandonment starts in childhood, especially if you grow up in a toxic environment. And if you're a highly sensitive being and you're an empath, and then you grow up in a toxic environment where people are fighting and like life is not making sense, and you come home with information and you share it with your mom or your dad, and you have this information, and then they say, no, you're wrong. And then you start to like second guess yourself.
Right.
And you start to pull yourself out of, wait a second, I can't trust myself. And it's a subconscious thing. It's very subtle and it's very subconscious. Then you start to second guess yourself, and then you're starting to outward picture. This is what I did. And I did this all the way into my 40s. It's only been the last few years that I actually and I've been healing for a while, but it's only been the last few years that I started to come inward and started to not look for Tony Robbins to fix me, not look for Allison Armstrong to fix me, not look for this healer or that healer to fix me, but that it was really here.
Right. Healers can only do what you're willing to do. And that inner work takes courage.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It takes so much courage. People think that the spiritual path, and I joke about this, is all love and light and fairy dust.
No.
And there's some of that, right? There's some elements of this beauty and light and so forth, but it's a both and. You have to strip away as you're claiming. You have to strip away as you're claiming. And it's this dance. It's this beautiful dance, and it's a give and take. It's got to have the polarity of both to get the maximum movement.
Yes, that's so true. That's the thing. It's like, and like coming back to home to self and doing the inner work. One of the things that I tell my clients, and I like instruct them on, like, this is what to expect. This is what is going to be required. These things like this, you're going to have to feel it all. And this was like the number one thing that I was the most afraid to do, was to feel it all. Like, I wanted somebody to fix me so I wouldn't have to feel it all.
Well, because that was our protection at a young age. It gets suppressed. We push it down until it can't stay down any longer. there gets to be a point where it bubbles up. It's like pushing a ball down into the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're young, you can hang out there and you can chill with your friends, but eventually it pops up and hits you in the face.
Yeah.
And what happens is we start repeating patterns.
Yes.
And bringing people the same personalities into our life and the same situations. And that is a gift in its own element to help us heal what is still unhealed.
Yeah.
Right. So you can't get through it. The only way you get through it is by moving through it.
Right. Yeah. Emotion is in motion. And it also shows up as dis-ease in the body. So there's so many women coming into their late 30s, early 40s, all of a sudden having autoimmune stuff, all of a sudden having hormonal imbalance. Like that was me. I had autoimmune stuff. I had hormonal imbalance out the wazoo. I had all kinds of physical issues in my body, yet I do not drink soda. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke. I eat healthy. I ate very healthy for years, decades. I was the girl in my 20s where my friends were getting McDonald's and I was like, I'll pass. Yeah. Right. Because my body was already starting to feel run down. It was already starting to feel the worn aspect of me pushing down my emotions for so long and denying myself and not giving myself a voice. My body was already starting to sense it in my 20s.
Yeah. And that's what happens. And I've got training with modalities such as massage therapy and so forth. And we're taught to only work on the muscle body.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to that. We have an emotional body and a spiritual body. And when we keep pushing aside our feelings and disregarding our needs, wants, and desires, it will anchor into our physical body, whether it's our muscles, our bones, or our organs. Right. Yeah. Or for you, the way that it showed up through autoimmune, it will start creating problems because as a human being, we will pay attention to physical pain.
Correct.
More so than emotional pain. We tend to shove down the emotional pain. I'll deal with that later. I'm too busy for that. I can't. But physical pain, it'll stop you in your tracks. It will make you pay attention. And from that point, we could start stripping away and get down to the root issue. The physical pain to me is just a symptom.
It is. It's a symptom. Yeah, exactly. When I was a kid and I would have so I'm a highly emotional being. I'm a Cancer sun and a Pisces moon. So I got water and emotion running all through me. And when I was a kid, I was raised around all boys. So I was the oldest granddaughter and I was raised with all my first cousins, right? So I have two brothers right after me. And then I have a bunch of first cousins. So I was born June 28th and my very first cousin after that was born September 28th. And then 2 years later, my brother was born July 12th. And then a couple months later, my aunt had a baby on September 10th. So it's like my mom and my aunt both had children at the same time and everything else was boys after me for a while. So I was raised around boys, and then I was raised around a father who could not feel emotion and did not want me to feel emotion. So here I am, this emotional being going, this is not okay. It's not accepted. I get made fun of, and my dad doesn't accept this. So I'm going to push it all down, and I'm going to act like I don't have any emotion. Like I am neutral. I'm not excited and I'm not sad. Like I'm not any of these, on the spectrum. I'm just neutral. And that is literally what I did. And in order for me to do that, in order for me to achieve that neutrality, I had to build a ton of walls around my heart. Right. So anytime you build a wall to keep something out, you're keeping all the stuff you also want out.
All the good.
There's no filter. Yeah. If you're building a wall around your heart to protect it, there's no filter around what's good or bad. It's like, if it's bad, it's not coming in. If it's good, it's not coming in. Like nothing's getting in.
And I see so many people that are healing from codependence, which I don't believe it ever heals completely. I believe you balance it. I see that happen. It happened within myself. I went from doing for everybody all the time, for everything, people pleasing constantly, to strict boundaries, which was the walls, nothing for nobody, right? Like walls. And exactly what you said, you have to have that flexibility. You have to be able to receive almost like a sponge, but in a healthy way. So you're not soaking up everything to where it's just drenched and stagnant. You're being able to wipe away what doesn't work for you and hold and absorb what you want and what you desire.
Well, this is where the inner work comes in, isn't it? Because in order for you to be able to be that and to hold yourself in that, you've got to know how to ride the waves of your emotion. You've got to know how to hold yourself when the emotion comes up. And when you're getting attacked, or when you're like, okay, so let's look at the world right now. The world right now is in absolute chaos and has been for the last year and a half. Our heads have all been on a swivel for a year and a half. Like, we've had news media saying this, and news media saying this, and news media saying this, and friends saying this, and you should do this. And it's like, what is the right thing to do?
Right. And that's where we need to come back home.
Exactly.
Because what's right for you and what's right for me could be completely different.
Yes.
Both be right.
Yes. And there's been so much fear, and there's been so much division, and there's been so many people like, turning on their neighbor. And the inner work is this ability to be able to look and see with clear eyes, because what the inner work does is it clears your channels. You guys all have channels that give you access to your higher knowing. You have the channels of your clairvoyance, and everyone has these. Like, it's not just the psychic that you go see. Yes, they have their abilities turned on, but you have the ability to turn these on too. Clairvoyance, clairaudience is your clear hearing. This is where you're hearing from God and your higher self. Your claircognizance is your clear knowing. This is where you just know. Your clairsentience is where you're clearly feeling. This is what I feel in my body is right. And I know it's my body. It's not somebody else's opinion coming in. It's not a post that I read. This is me. This is my body.
And then there's the discernment of trusting what comes through when it is received. And so much with me helping women with their psychic development, they have the gifts, they don't trust.
Exactly. Oh, and
so you can have all of it turned on, but if you don't trust it, it's not doing you any good.
Exactly. I think that's one of the hardest parts. That's been the hardest part for me, is to trust.
It's for all women and men as well. It's being able to go from here, which we were programmed to do from a very, very young age, is only use the thinking and mental realm, to trusting the unseen, which is what is in our body, in our divine selves, in our connection with the highest vibrational light, and being able to discern that from what our ego is trying to get us to do. For survival, because it's always worked before. My family's always done it this way. I've always done it this way. Like, that voice needs to turn off.
Yeah, exactly. That all goes back to like our inner child, in the childhood wounds around like not being able to trust what we bring home to mom and dad. And we say to mom and dad, this is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm feeling.
Yeah. And not just mom and dad, but in the school system.
Exactly.
Aunts, uncles, grandparents, whoever was molding us, or that we went through, we looked up to. Right. Or there's seen and not heard. All of those things come into play when we start opening the channel of our gifts.
Yes, exactly. And this is what the inner work is really all about. It's coming back home so that we can trust this part of ourselves. I know that for myself, like, I'm a healer, and I'm also, learning different modalities of healing and expanding that. And there's parts of me that's like, oh, am I strong enough to heal? Am I strong enough to do this for someone else? Can I really say this? And there's a knowing that I have. My aunt was recently diagnosed with a very serious illness, and there's a knowing that I have about it. And I'm afraid to say it to my family because A, I don't want to get their hopes up, and B, I'm like, what if I'm wrong? So even those of us who have been doing the inner work still have those times where we're second guessing ourselves.
And you will, but if you can tap in and anchor into who you are. So I just want to go back with something you said. What if I'm wrong?
Yes.
What if you're right?
Yes, exactly.
Like changing our dialogue with ourselves to the what ifs as the positive.
Right.
What if she
Exactly.
heals? What if I'm right? What if I'm enough? What if I change these lives?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And that's exactly what we as women on this, and men too. I think it's probably even more so for men around trusting the intuition, because it's always been a given in our society and in our culture scape that it's women who have the intuition. It's women who have the knowing, but actually men have very strong knowings.
No, men are incredibly intuitive. And if it
Mm-hmm.
helps, if they use the terminology a lot, just to say, go
Yeah.
with your gut. Going with your
Yes,
gut, going with
exactly.
your instincts is the same as intuition. So sometimes just a flip of the
Exactly.
switch of the wording helps them tap into that and trust. Again, it comes back to trust, though, because
Yes.
our intuition, our inner knowing, and
Mm-hmm.
our divine intelligence doesn't always make logical sense.
No,
Doesn't, and
so.
usually it doesn't. Like some of the greatest things that I've followed from my divine wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
on paper they looked crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. But when I trust, call
Mm-hmm.
this person, do that thing, say
Yes.
that thing, it always exceeds what my humanness would ever be able to comprehend.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you said that and started into that. Let's go down that road, because this is a big one. When we start to trust the inner guidance, even though it doesn't make sense. So we have been trained to logically look at things and, this doesn't logically make sense. It needs to go this way. But when we can let that stuff go, this requires a tremendous amount of courage. So when we can let that stuff go and we step into the courage of, I am just going to trust my inner guidance and do the thing, like you said, it works out beyond our imagination. It works out beyond what we can even comprehend, because we don't have access to the way that God is going to do it. God is going to move in our life. And this is honestly what creates the magic and the mystic and the miracles that we came here to experience and express. Jesus himself said, in about 2,000 years, you will be able to do these and even greater things. In order to be able to do these and even greater things, it's tapping in to that energetic, it's tapping into that frequency.
Where we are limitless. In
Yes.
our human self, that mental realm cannot comprehend that.
No.
Cannot comprehend it because it's not going to make logical sense.
No.
But if you go with divine inspiration and divine knowing,
Mm-hmm.
you cut out a whole lot of steps.
Exactly.
It's really incredible the speed that I'm able to bring things into manifested form. Yes. When I anchor into that wisdom.
Yes, exactly.
And don't negotiate with it, which I spent a lot of years doing, right?
Yes, I know. Me too.
Yeah. So when I just literally tap in and say, okay, yes, yes, yes. And when I say yes and I move forward in action, trusting the wisdom that came through, it always knocks my socks off.
This is when we co-create, isn't it?
It is when we co-create. We're always in co-creation. We just end up often, because of going here, co-creating what we don't want.
Exactly. Exactly. That's the journey, and that's the dance, and that's the beauty of the journey and the dance, is that we are here in this place where we can co-create. And we can look at this world right now and see it falling apart. We can see the destruction happening. And there's so much fear, like I said, in the collective consciousness around what is happening. But when we can have compassion on ourselves and have compassion on those people who have not been guided to do the inner work yet, they don't know how, right? So I come from a Christian background. And so I look at Christianity and I see how it keeps people from doing the inner work, because it's all about this one entity of just pray to Jesus and you'll be okay. And that isn't the truth. Like, you can pray to Jesus and that's fine and well and good. But if you are not willing to go and do this inner work and have an understanding of what energy really is, because that is what Jesus actually played with, was energy. When you can start to understand energy, and you start to understand your body, and you start to understand that the emotions that in the beliefs and all of this stuff that you took on over the course of your life is actually creating the out picture of what you're getting right now. And that it's really up to you to go in and go and alchemize. Alchemy is a transformation of energy. Alchemize what it is that you're out picturing so that you get a different out picture that is the actual work. It's not just one simple prayer.
Well, there's the power of prayer, but there also needs to be intentional action. Because when we just say, here, please do this for me.
Yes.
It's like you're going through the drive-through at McDonald's. Do this for me.
Okay.
Right. But there has to be this co-creation.
Yes.
With whatever that vibration of highest life, the source of all that is, whatever name is placed upon it. I believe that we still got to do our part.
We do.
We're an active component of it. We have to use the power of our words and the power of our action.
Yes.
And release the outcome.
Yes.
To the higher energy, right?
Yeah. It's so freaking important. And so doing the inner work, and what do we mean by the inner works? And the inner work is, and healing is, for me, the process has been to go in and look for all of the lies that I told myself over the years about myself.
Betrayal.
Yes, exactly. So I grew up so I had acne and I hated myself. I hated my skin. I hated myself. I hated looking in the mirror. I had very, very little self-worth. I had very little self-confidence. And so everything that I did, every decision that I made was based upon this aspect of this low self-worth and low self-confidence. I didn't believe I could. I didn't believe I was worthy of. So yes, I had all of these big dreams and these big desires, but I didn't believe that I could have them. I didn't believe I was worthy of having them. So then everything became about going for it and sabotaging it, going for it and sabotaging it.
So common.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that is the underlying truth of anything we try to manifest into form. You can do all the steps, you can follow all the instructions to technical proficiency. But if you don't believe that you are worthy of having, you will not have. Or it will come to you and you will lose it. Yeah. You have to hold the frequency and the energy of, I am worthy of this thing that I say I want. I believe that this can happen.
Yep.
That is the source of all magic making, of manifesting, of doing anything in hyper speed, right? Like bringing it in, just knowing it is possible for me.
Yeah.
No matter what the outside forces said, right? No matter how our upbringing was. I've seen incredible success stories. And on paper, you would think there's no way she's going to be able to do that. Yeah. Yes, she does. Yeah. Yes, she does. Or he does, right? But it has to come from that value of yourself. Yeah. And knowing that you can. It does. And it does not matter what ethnic background you're from. It doesn't matter how you grew up, where you grew up, what's in your bank account. None of it matters. Nope. What matters is how you feel about yourself. Yeah. And that self-love, that's where the inner work, when we talk about self-love, it's such a trend word. But if you really do it and you dig deep into the layers and love yourself passionately, orgasmically, to this phase of ecstatic living, like you fill yourself up before any other person can fill you up. Exactly. And I think with so many relationships struggle and suffer is because people are looking for somebody to fulfill them. Right. Yes. You have to fulfill yourself first. And then everything else is like icing on the cake. It's the extra. Yes. And it's the same thing with work. People throw themselves into work. They're trying to fulfill the holes, the emptiness. Yes. But when you do your inner work, when you do your healing, and you really take, to me, it's self-mastery. Yeah. That's what inner work means to me. It is coming in and taking self-responsibility and self-mastery, no matter what happened to you, no matter what your parents did to you, what happened in school, what happened, whatever happened, it's yours now. Yes. They might have did it to you, but it's yours now. Yep. So you can either let it continue to poison your soul and to limit you and put more blocks in your path, or you can get rid of it and change your life. And it can happen in an instant. Exactly. And don't you think that we came here for that mastery? Oh, absolutely. For that mastery. That's what I believe as well. I believe that we came here for that mastery.
So we, on our soul level, we set our life up to experience certain things. And then it becomes our opportunity to go back and alchemize all of that. Like I said, alchemy is a transformation of energy. So we go back and we alchemize all of that. We alchemize it through restructuring our beliefs and how we see the world, through shadow work, shadow alchemy, and looking at the shadows. The shadows are the parts of you that you've denied or pushed away. And you're like, I don't want to look at that. Like, I don't want anyone to know about that part of me, because I judge
the
it.
Shadows are not bad.
Exactly.
They're not bad.
Yeah.
They keep you alive.
Exactly.
You created them to survive. And
Mm-hmm.
if we shine light onto our shadows, they have no power over us.
Correct. Yeah.
And the balance in both are needed.
Exactly.
You cannot be all love and life and be here on earth. You cannot.
No, it doesn't.
People would walk all over you. They would take advantage of you. You have to be able to step in. And the shadow self does not mean bad or dark. And I think there's a misconception.
Yes, there
People
is.
stepping into their path, their spiritual path, and they hear the word shadow and they automatically attach something negative to it.
Correct.
Shadow is just a deeper understanding of yourself and your own humanness.
Yeah. And don't you think that that's by design, for us to judge the shadow as wrong? It's by design from the powers that be. Don't look at that part of yourself, because ultimately your shadows are the way through.
Yes. I think that depending on upbringing, there's different ways of looking at it. But when we actually look at it from a bird's eye view, which is more my shamanic teaching, right? We look at everything that's happening in our life. First of all, I believe that it's not happening to us, it's happening for us. If you're looking at it straight on, it's overwhelming and it could seem overbearing. It could seem horrible, bad, whatever. But if you go up and you're looking at it with an eagle's eye view, those huge problems look very, very tiny. Yeah. And you can see everything around it of what the potentiality is. Yep. But when you're just staring straight at it, we often don't see the bigger picture, the bigger vision. I know. And for me, the shadows or the life challenges or the traumas we've gone through all have a bigger vision. Once you get through them and you do your inner work, you start to realize the gold in the experience, which is what I call our sacred medicine. Yep. You go in and you figure out what you learned that you would have never, ever learned, never, ever experienced had you not gone through the thing. Exactly. And from that, that's how we serve as healers. We take our experiences, our traumas, our wounds, we alchemize them, we learn from them, and then we take that medicine and that information and we give it to others so that their path can be a little easier. Correct. Right? You still have to go through your stuff. You still got to do your work. But us that come together as shadow workers, light workers, healers, mystics, we're trying to really take that work out into the world and make it easier, which is what we had in indigenous cultures, right? We always had an elder to go to and share sacred storytelling. And that's why I think it's so powerful for us to share our experiences with other men and women, because we learn through story. We do. We learn through story. It's also another way of saying that is accessing your genius. Oh, absolutely. The sacred gold, the sacred medicine. It's also accessing your genius. You have an innate genius inside of you that only you have. As a soul on this planet, you incarnated with very specific codes, with very specific DNA. Only you have it. And we know this on a surface level, that our fingerprint is the only one. We are the only one with this thumbprint. There's no one else on this planet that shares this thumbprint, even if you're a twin. Yeah. And your gifts are just as unique as that thumbprint. Exactly. And so I feel like for those of us on the healing journey or on the journey itself, it's really about discovering our genius, discovering the sacred medicine, the gold, discovering all of these things, like you said, so that we can then go and serve and give back to this great planet, because this planet is going up in frequency
whether you like it or not, what's going up in frequency, and everyone on it has to go up too. And so those people that we see struggling with this going up, because if there's so much fear, what happens is there's destruction happening. There are systems that have been in place for millennia that are destroying because it doesn't work in this new earth energy that we are creating and co-creating. It doesn't work. And so this stuff is going away. But if you're so connected to the old systems, then those old systems going away is incredibly scary.
Mm-hmm.
And this is
if you come in and focus on you, it's not so scary.
Exactly.
It makes change tolerable.
Exactly. This is why the inner work is the most important work that you can be doing right now, is coming inside and looking inside of the mental, the emotional, the physical, the spiritual, the bodily, all of it, like looking at all of it and starting to shift what no longer works. So basically the outward picture of what's happening is also the inward picture of what's happening. The destruction of old systems is happening, but the destruction of your old systems is also happening.
And that's such a huge thing, because when we destroy and dissolve outdated beliefs, that's when transformation and growth and expansion happens.
Yeah. And you know, you and I came and started doing this earlier. You know, we came ahead of the curve, and I didn't know why I was doing it. I just was like in a lot of pain. So I was just like, oh my God, I got to go heal this shit. You know, like I didn't know what was coming. I couldn't see what was coming.
And we still don't know what's coming because we're not supposed to know.
Right.
And the same thing with people who align into their sacredness. When you are called into divine action, if you knew the scope of the bigger picture of how you are being called to serve, it would scare the shit out of us in our human self. We would never move forward. So that's why we're on a need to know basis.
Yes, exactly.
Small steps. And that's why I tell people, don't make it so scary. You don't need the 10-year plan.
Right.
Tap in, feel into it, feel it in your physical body, your emotional body. What is my next best step? And if we keep taking the next best step, the next best step, the next best step, you get there. You get there a whole lot faster because you don't stop yourself from the bigness.
Exactly. That is like so true. And I think that that's a part where for me, for a long time, that's what I missed, is that I was so in my head, even though I was on my healing journey, I was so in my head still, because I didn't know I didn't know the importance of transferring from my head to my heart. So my heart had a lot of heart walls, and I had to do the process of clearing those heart walls in order to even drop into my heart and drop into my body. So when you're in your head, you're constantly trying to figure out what the next step is. What's the next thing for me? I gotta know. But when you can drop into the body and into the heart, and the understanding that God is just working it out, then you can walk that path where you're shown one step, and you do it in faith, and then you're shown the next step and you do that in faith.
And it takes away the anxiety of the need to know. Like part of my story was perfectionism, right? And codependence, and how's this going to affect, and am I doing the right thing? And am I doing it the right way? Is it going to be good enough? That was all coming from here.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's the inner mean girl.
Yes.
She is not leading the way anymore.
Yeah.
If you drop down in and you go from that divine wisdom, then you cannot go wrong.
I know.
You cannot go wrong.
Yeah.
But going from here, it will have you repeat patterns because that's what it knows how to do.
Exactly.
That's its job. Its job is to repeat patterns.
Yes.
But if you keep repeating patterns, you don't evolve.
Exactly.
It's not that you're not going to go here, right? We're human. We're going to go back up there. But the more you practice this work, the more you tap into your inner knowing, the easier it is that when you snap up here, you wink, you smile, and you go, oh, I know what's happening. Whoop, bring it back down. Bring it back down.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, that's so good. Yeah. In my journey of healing, that was one of the things, like when I first started even sharing my work, I would second guess it constantly.
Yeah.
And I would constantly be like, oh my God, is it good enough? And I would overgive, right? So I would think that I had to have all of this stuff in order to make the price that I was charging worth it, you know? And it's really interesting because I have this new program called unTwisted, and I raised my prices on it. And this is the first time that I've ever really done that. And I was thinking about it, and that old pattern wanted to come in and say, wait a second, what are you thinking? Like, you can't do that. Da, 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 da. All the old stories wanted to come in. And I'm like, wait a second, hold up a second. I just went through a 6-year marriage, and I experienced hell in that 6-year marriage. And then I got out, and I've been 7 years clean from this man. And I've been 7 years of constant integration, constant looking at, how did I create that pattern? How do I shift it? How do I alchemize the shadows? Like constantly going in and doing inner work and inner work and inner work. I'm
There's
like,
your value. There's your wisdom.
Exactly. I have so much to offer a woman or a man who has experienced this and who either keeps repeating the pattern, or they're just like finally done with it. I am done with this pattern. I never want to experience it again. There's so much value to offer. And if I can cut somebody's time frame from my 6-year relationship and then 7 years of healing to let's just get it done, I will teach you the tools in 4 weeks, and then you just keep doing it and you get through it, you know, in a matter of months, then like, what's the value and the price on that? You know?
Right. It's the same with how we work with business or whatever we're doing with people. If we can help them get through the trenches a whole lot faster, that's good work. That's good work. Exactly. And what you said and what you expressed is what I see with all healers. I went through it myself. I would raise my price, and then I would throw all kinds of extra bonuses in. And by the time I put all the bonuses in, I was making less than I was originally making before I added up the price. But that goes back into doing that inner work on self-worth, right? Being seen, being heard, being valued. And it all starts from within. We have to believe that we're worthy of it. And then we have to hold that energy and get behind it and get behind and know, yes, that's my price. And that is fair. And that is, I am worth it. And I'm going to give, and they are going to have transformation because of it.
Yeah.
If we do it from that place, it has to be a good energetic exchange.
Exactly.
It has to be.
And that is getting your energy right, you know, because it all boils down to our energy. It all boils down to us in our own alignment first. And then from that alignment, then we can co-create from there what it is that we desire to bring in. So if it's a relationship, you know, there's so many people desiring a relationship, and like, you got to get clean with yourself. You got to get clean inside of yourself first and start to do this inner work so that you're out picturing what you attract in is something so amazing and so aligned that you don't experience the narcissistic relationship dynamic, right?
And so much of that, I believe, is that you have to love yourself in the way you want to be loved by a partner. If you don't, you're going to attract the wrong person. Exactly. Right. But it comes here because you are whole before you ever invite somebody in.
Exactly.
Nobody will ever fill you up like you can fill yourself up ever.
Yeah.
We have to have that wholeness. We have to. All of this stuff that find your better half, that's bullshit. You are a whole person.
Yes, you are.
Make yourself whole, be complete. And then everything else is just beautiful. And when you are whole and you're anchored into your divine self, and you can tap into your inner wisdom, you have a GPS system to tell you this is right, this is safe, this is where I need to go. You are being soul led.
Yes.
And you will know, you'll always know what your soul knows.
Yes.
You'll trust it when you do that work. When you go outside of yourself to try to fill it, it never works out.
No,
it never works out. It's not going to be a healthy relationship, narcissist or not. It's not going to be a healthy relationship.
Yeah, because it ultimately comes back to you. And I think that the reason why so many things are breaking down on the planet right now, we're just like seeing all of this shift, is because we have to go back to soul. We have to go, like, you know, I was born in 1975. So I grew up in the 1980s and the 1990s, and seeing how, so it was really goal oriented, right? It was really like, hustle hard. It was all of these programs and patterns around that. I know you're in my, like,
I'm a
circle
couple
of
years older than you. Yeah.
women.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we grew up in this hustle hard and work, work yourself to the bone, and you have to choose, right? You choose your career, you choose your family.
One or
And
the other. Yeah.
yeah. And so it took women out of their or out of their feminine energy and put them in a very toxic masculine place where, all of life suffered for them. Their body suffered, their relationships suffered, maybe their bank account didn't, but everything else did.
That was
And
my life when I was in corporate. Yeah, I was 100% in my masculine in a petroleum company, and
yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
100% masculine. That's the only way I would have ever got through that
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
But it's not healthy.
No, it's not. It's
Not
not.
healthy.
And I feel like your and I our work is really healing from that and showing women there's a different way. And
Yeah.
even men, because even though men have the capacity to work more to some degree, like they have the build and they have the makeup because they are completely different than women. There's still this element of like, we grew up with dads that worked all the time.
Yeah, there's this definition on success and what success is and how you get there. And there's so much attached to the hustle, to the do,
Yes.
or first in, first out, which was how I was when I was in corporate. I was always the first in, the last to leave. I always exceeded expectations. I was the one that go until my health couldn't do it anymore. I was just frying myself out. Right.
Yep.
That is not living life. That's life living you. And there's a very big difference.
Yes.
There's a very big difference. And when you balance out the masculine and the feminine, to me, I did it wrong. I went straight from being 100% in my masculine, and then I flipped and went 100% to my feminine. And that's not good either.
Yeah, it's not. No.
There has to be a structure to it, but it needs to be balanced. You have to anchor the two. Everybody is divinely masculine and divinely feminine, no matter what sex you are. You have both energies within you. There's polarity. It's the yin and yang, right? We have to work with both of those energies. Each have very distinct qualities that help us be our most divine selves when we tap into them. And that is part of the force of manifestation. That's a part of being. That's about creating. You can come up with all the ideas, but if you don't have that element of action and structure, it's not gonna come into fruition the way you wish it to.
I know. And I was just gonna say that about what you were saying earlier about being given your next steps and your next steps and your next steps. There's always action required. And then we have to have the courage to take the action that is planted in us to take, even if it doesn't make sense.
And it's not going to make sense most of the time. That's the thing.
No, I know.
So the thing that will happen most likely is you'll get the wisdom. And if you're new on this path, you'll go straight up in your head and all the hows will come into play. And those hows are like roadblocks. You need to tell them to shut that up, right? And drop back down into your heart and just trust you will be shown what's next.
Yeah.
But if you concentrate on all the how and the why, that will stop the momentum and the flow of creating things into form.
Yeah, exactly. I want to give a tip or two, a couple of tips from each of us on what does the healing actually look like? Like, what are things that people can do to heal? What would be one or two things that you would say?
Oh my goodness. It depends what they're going through and what their comfort level is, but very, very basic is really just taking that moment to tap into yourself. And if people don't know how to do that, it's bringing the energy outside of you back into you, bringing it back home. And an easy way to do that is just hand on heart, hand on the lower belly, whether you're a man or a woman. This is the energetic womb space. And just slowly rocking your hips forward and back as slowly as you can, so slowly that if it was any slower, it would stop. That automatically, without thinking, is going to draw energy in and up.
Yeah.
And the reason I like to do hand on heart and hand on womb is because I want these two to connect. I manifest from my inner being, from my center, from my core, from my soul center.
Yeah.
But I want to do everything heart led.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm trusting that, and I'm anchored in, I'm connecting with and allowing whatever to flow through me from the highest vibration of light. And it's just very subtle.
It
And
is.
it doesn't take long. You can do it while you're typing if you need to. I mean, you don't have to put your hands there. Just bringing that energy inward is so important. And for me, that is the easiest way to get people that don't understand energy to be able to bring energy back home to self.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the healing journey has looked, that's also what I want to talk about too, is like kind of like a little bit about what your healing journey looked like. I'm going to share, something that I do is I tap, like right here is your hypothalamus, or your thalamus gland. Your thalamus gland is right here. It's the spark plug to your nervous system. And if I get freaked out, I just start tapping right here.
Yeah, that was a big part of ours. And you do it like, there's a reason that Tarzan and that happy, it activates the happiness point in the thymus gland.
Yeah. So you just like breathe deep and start tapping right here. Like it's just that simple. So, what did your like healing journey look like?
Oh my gosh, which part?
I know, right?
I'm 48. There's a lot of pieces of the healing journey.
Let's do recent years.
So the biggest thing that just came through is I was lifeless about a year and a half ago. Lifeless. My hair was falling out. My face had discolored. I was spotted. I couldn't walk more than 10 feet without feeling completely fatigued. I didn't want to get out of bed. And I was still muscling through everything trying to do. And for me, it was called BII, which is breast implant illness. And I waited too long to get the implants out, and my body started shutting down on me.
Oh my
God. So I had them explanted on May 5th on Cinco de Mayo, in 2020. And the day after they were explanted, all of the lumps under my arms went away. I could breathe again. I didn't even realize how little air capacity I had until they were out, and I was able to take those spacious breaths. It took a little longer for my skin and hair to start repairing, but everything just started realigning. And that brought more life force energy back into me. But that was a huge healing journey and a really, really harsh life lesson. Of not putting my health last. I was still so codependent and trying to help everybody else. I didn't want to take time off. I didn't want to spend the money. It was all out of pocket. And I just kept pushing it off. I've got a really high pain tolerance. So I just kept pushing it off until my body stopped on me and said, no, you're not gonna, I mean, I honestly, I felt like I was dying before the surgery. If I could have got in earlier, I would have done the surgery earlier. I was like calling them every day going, is there any cancellations? Are there any cancellations? I could not breathe. And I was just gasping for air all the time, and still trying. 27 years.
Oh, wow. You had the same
7 years. It was not listening to my gut and my intuition. A mom of a good friend of mine was a very successful model, and she wanted to help me get into modeling. And out of her heart, she really believed this was right for me to get into print modeling. And she took me to her doctor and took me through the whole process. And I cried after I got these implants. I thought I looked like a hee-haw girl. They were just too big for my body and uncomfortable, and it hurt, and I didn't want them, but I trusted that like this dream of being a model was going to be this thing. I was so young. And so just not listening to myself, like way back then, and being aware of it, but still doing and listening to somebody else. So a very, very hard lesson. Right. And my body paid for it. And got all the scars to prove it. But going through that taught me a lot of things. And And with each hardship, with each challenge that we go through, whether it's physical or mental or subjective, whatever it may be, we gather information. And I believe that each one of those experiences has helped me be able to serve other women with fierce compassion. Like there's so much wealth of knowledge that through that 10 years, I went through many different phases of that illness. In ways that I got through it myself. Like I was dancing and taping my chest and doing massage and taping my chest in to be able to get through school, and all the things that we do as a woman just to keep going.
Yeah.
With a child, making sure I could take care of him when I felt like death warmed over, like really had no life in me, and figuring out how to do it. And I think that that's something that I love about women so much, is women make things happen no matter what.
Like, I know, right?
So strong, and we are so fierce. And if we take that strength and that fierceness and we put it into our purpose and into intentional actions, we are unstoppable.
I know.
Yeah. But so often our energies are focused in the wrong way. We're just slightly a few degrees off. Yeah. And I was degrees off. I should have done the surgery years and years and years ago.
Yeah. And that's what the healing journey is really all about. It's about refocusing back onto your path. And how many of us have self-abandoned, and done things to our body that we're like, even sex, we self-abandon in that area where we're like, I don't really feel like I want to do that right now. But your husband's like, needing it, wanting it, and you're like, oh, okay,
and it settles in our tissue, and it causes inner resistance and inner betrayal.
It is.
And your body remembers that.
Yeah.
And then you do it in other areas of life too.
Yeah.
And it really is it's self-betrayal. And I think all of us have done that at one time or another. I know, being a recovering codependent woman, I betrayed myself a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. I said yes when I just wanted to scream no.
Yeah.
In a lot of different things, to a lot of different people. And when you get more solid in who you are and you step into that confidence of your purpose and your inner wisdom, saying no is one of the most beautiful things. And it's often the most heart and loving thing that you can do, because you also encourage other people to stand on their own feet.
Yeah.
And you teach other people that it's okay to say no too.
Yeah.
And to say no without having to give an explanation. That was the huge part of that for me, which is a process,
That's exactly like the whole, like, healing from people pleasing.
It's
saying no and doing what's right for you. And that was one of the hardest things for me. Like, I started doing that, honestly, whenever I left my marriage. That was the very first time that I ever said no. And I said yes to myself. Yeah. And I remember grappling with that. Okay. So here I was in a 6-year marriage where I was being absolutely abused all the time for 6 straight years. And I get to October of 2013 and I'm like, I have got to do this for me. And it was the hardest decision I ever had to make. I was just like, oh my God, who's going to take care of him? I do everything for him. What's going to happen? And I had to like wrestle with this. What's going to happen to him? But I got to do this for me, because I'm not going to live through this if I keep doing this.
Yeah.
And it's really about coming back. Like what we've been talking about this whole time is coming back home to yourself, coming back inside to the self and doing what's right for us. And that it is not selfish, that it is not wrong to do what is right for us.
No, it's not selfish. It is self-love. It's self-love. Mm-hmm. We are just programmed from an early age to make other people happy.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. And that is so right. That is so freaking right.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's a really good place for us to end. I think we've been going for an hour.
Yeah.
I am going to share a little bit about my healing journey. I have breast implants, but so far I haven't had any problems. I haven't had mine in 10 years. I'm at my 10-year mark this month, 10 years. Anyway, I've been kind of like wrestling with, do I get them out? Do I not get them out? But right now I know I'm going to keep them in for right now. But anyway, so my healing journey, I just want to share this a little bit about my healing journey. For the first part of my healing journey, like the intensive part, like the last 7 years of healing, it was all looking outward. Like Tony Robbins is going to fix me. Allison Armstrong is going to fix me. You know, all these other people that I was learning from and healing with are going to fix me. And then it came to a point in the last, like, I'd say the real intensity was the last 3 years. And I was always frustrated and angry because I wasn't further along than what I was. I'm like, I'm 40 something years old. I should be here. I'm this years old and I should be here. I've been doing this for this long and I should be here. I've invested this much money and I should be here. So there was always this victim consciousness around, I should be here because I'm this age, I've invested this much money and I've done this much work.
Right.
And it wasn't until I was like, okay, I've got to drop the victim consciousness because this is not helping. And I've really got to own myself. I've got to go do the inner work. No one else is going to do it. No one else is going to do the inner work for me. I have got to go feel this stuff. And it wasn't until last year when I was sitting in a healing ceremony for myself. It was just me. And I was sitting in this healing ceremony and I started to cry. And instead of like drying my tears to make myself cry, stop crying, I let myself cry. And I let myself cry. And I let myself cry. And I was like, oh my God, 45 minutes later, I'm still heaving and I'm crying. Used to, I would have tried to turn it off, like get it done as fast as possible. Just like we kind of like do in an orgasm. We're like, just get it done sometimes, you know, until we learn to enjoy it. I just was like, get it done. And this time I was like, no. And I'm going to name all of the emotions that I'm feeling coming up.
So good.
Oh my God. It was life-changing for me. That is life-changing. Like that is some of the advice that I give my one-on-one clients. Cry and feel it and name it. Give that shame a name. Give that shame a voice. Give that regret a voice. Give it all a voice. It wants to have a voice. When I did that, everything started to change for me.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah. Insane.
Just giving yourself that space and that movement to be able to have the permission to let your feelings flow when your childhood did not allow you to do that. That's such a huge gift to yourself.
It is. It is. And I think for those of you listening is the like what I want to end on, like what I want to, like last thing I want to say is give the gift of the healing that you need based upon what you didn't have when you were a child. I wasn't allowed to cry and feel when I was a kid. So now I allow myself to cry and feel. So what is it that you are not allowed to do that you know your soul, your body, your spirit needs to do, your personality needs to do right now? And give yourself that gift.
Yeah, absolutely. So beautiful.
I know. How about you? What do you want to end on?
I want them to dream into the potential of what if.
I love that.
What if I do this thing? What if I'm enough? What if I meet the perfect love of my life? What if I heal this trauma? What if? What if I impact the next person?
Yeah.
Just dream into the limitless that you hold.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Love that. Love that. So in the description box below, I will have all of your contact information so people can follow you on all the social medias and all of that stuff. Do you have a program or anything coming up, or a digital program that you have that you want to offer for people to get that deeper inner healing and work with you?
Yes. Come into my world. Come into my world.
Yes.
So definitely I'll give you all the links, but Wealth Codes is one of the great programs that I offer. It's based off of wealth consciousness. And the next program that hasn't even been released yet, so your people are the first to even hear the name, is Enchanted Wealth. And so that program is coming up, and we're pulling in all of the magic and all of the enchantment, all of the possibilities, and bringing manifestation into form. And doing all the healing and energetics and everything that goes with that, so that we can just go bigger and bigger and bigger without limitations.
I love that. That is awesome. I'm so excited for that, for you and for anyone who joins that. I know, like, wealth consciousness, it is not just money. And all of us have got to be doing the work of wealth consciousness right now, because the wealth consciousness is what is going to lay the foundation of this new earth that we are building. Wealth consciousness.
Yes, and that is the purpose of this. Is part of my purpose is to align women. I work with women pretty much 40 and up, but women into their purpose and putting money, paper money, in the hands of conscious minded people. Wealth consciousness self, what we do is we go through all areas of life so that abundance and flow and beauty is in all areas, just hitting all of the different areas, and one affects the other and affects the other, and then it just grows and it expands, and we send that out to the next woman and the next woman and the next woman.
Oh my gosh, I freaking love that. I love it, love it, love it. Thank you.
Thank you
for that work. That is incredibly important work on this planet right now.
Thank you.
I honor you, love. So I hope you guys all had an amazing time with us today. This is Jen Piceno, and like I said, all of this will be linked below in the description box. Please like and subscribe to this channel so that we can keep doing this and sharing with you the wisdom of those of us who came to help the planet go up in frequency. We're all in this together, guys. So let's do our part to access that genius, access those codes and those wealth consciousness and all of that to really make a difference here right now. So
absolutely.
All right, loves. We'll see you till next time.